You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. My name is Eben, Jansen. The show is also being streamed live on YouTube right now, as it is every day between 9 and 10 a.m. with the entire show available on our YouTube channel all of the time, of course. Well, we'll be back at the High Court for an update shortly with Griselda Lewis. We'll also look at gun laws in South Africa, and do we have a problem with corruption when we deal with gun laws in this country? And then a little bit later we'll look at NUMSA's proposed industrial action for later today. But first, here are the news headlines. Public Protector Thuli Madonsela will release her final report into upgrades at President Jacob Zuma's Nkandla homestead this afternoon. Controversy has surrounded the spending of more than 206 million rand on what were described as security upgrades at the homestead. An embargo has been placed on news stories while the report is being released, and journalists have been barred from taking electronic equipment into the venue. The signing of the National Code of Conduct pledge by contesting parties and the ballot paper position draw for the 2014 elections is set to take place in Midrand later this morning. A record number of political parties are set to contest the national and provincial elections on May 7 this year. Today, they will all commit to an election that is free and fair, free from violence, intimidation and intolerance. The Metal Workers Union, NUMSA, says it expects 500,000 workers to heed the call for a national one-day strike today. The union has called the strike to highlight its opposition to the Employment Tax Incentive Act, which encourages private employers to employ young workers. NUMSA Secretary General Eben says the youth subsidy is an attack on the workers. Ballistics expert Chris Mangena is expected to testify today on whether or not Oscar Pistorius wore his prosthetic legs when he fired the shots that killed his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp. Taking the stand yesterday, Mangena told the court he had performed tests linking the holes in the toilet door through which the athlete fired his handgun with marks on the tiles and the position of Steenkamp's fatal wounds. Prosecutor Gerrie Nel then told the court that he would leave his conclusions for today. Well, today it is, and let's go to Griselda Lewis, who is standing by outside the North Gauteng High Court. Good morning, Griselda. Interesting developments as has been.
Good morning to you, Eben.
Interesting developments has been pretty much every day, but you did a very nice exclusive interview last night with the Steenkamp family. I saw some of it on Twitter. Can you just tell us what came out of that interview with the Steenkamp family?
Well, Eben, yesterday I spoke to Kim Martin, who is Reva Steenkamp's cousin, and she really expressed much hurt that the family is facing during this time. Well, Kim told me that it's been increasingly difficult for the family to arrive at court here every single day to listen to details after details in testimony of Reva Steenkamp's last hours, how she was shot, and basically how the bullets had penetrated her body. She really spoke about, you would know that Kim is from Cape Town. She came to Pretoria specifically to come and listen to the testimonies that are being given in this trial, and she says that every time the graphic images are being shown in court, the best that they can do as a family is to look away, and that they basically can't bear looking at the grisly images that continue being shown inside here at the North Gauteng High Court. Kim also told us that Reva Steenkamp's mother, June, is not doing well at all. She hasn't been able to speak to the media. She doesn't want to at this stage, but she says that the family is finding it very difficult to cope during this time as details continue to be laid bare inside the North Gauteng High Court. I did ask her, however, if she knew about Oscar Pistorius and Reva's relationship. She did not want to comment on that, but she did indicate that Reva Steenkamp had visited her and her husband in Cape Town a month before she was killed, and Reva really seemed to be happy. She also didn't want to comment on what we're seeing inside the court of the Pistorius family really wanting to reach out to the Steenkamp family. We've already seen Oscar's uncle Arnold, as well as Amy Pistorius, who is was Oscar's sister, reach out to the family and have brief conversation with June Steenkamp on whether the family felt comforted about the arms that the Pistorius family was stretching out to them. She also did not want to comment on that.
Griselda, now the one person that's back in Port Elizabeth is the father, Barry. Has there been any update on his condition? We understand that he's been battling ill health as well.
Well, all that Kim Martin could say to me was that Barry Steenkamp was not doing well at all, and that it's better off that he remain in Port Elizabeth, where he'd be able to support the family from there. We also heard from the ANC Women's League much earlier on in the week, who had lunch with June Steenkamp, that June Steenkamp had indicated that it was better off for Barry Steenkamp to be in Port Elizabeth, and that he wouldn't be able to bear the images that are shown inside court. But Kim did indicate that Barry Steenkamp is not doing well at all, and that he's still obviously very devastated by what happened to his daughter, and him being in Pretoria inside the court would not be in the best interest for his health.
And Griselda, now ballistic testimony will continue today. What's the expectation today? And just a quick recap on yesterday, if you can.
Well, very crucial testimony that we're expecting from Chris Mangena, the ballistic expert. This is where the pieces of the puzzle, Eben, are really going to come together, because crucial questions will be answered here, where Chris Mangena, in his conclusion following his investigation, will be laid bare inside this court, where Mangena will conclude what position Reeva Steenkamp, as per his investigation, what position Reeva Steenkamp was in when the shots were fired. Also, basically, what order the bullets were fired. And also, very crucial as well, how far Oscar Pistorius was from the door which separated him from Reeva Steenkamp. Those are really crucial questions that need to be answered, which will either make or break the state's case. So everybody is really looking to see what this ballistics expert will say, what his conclusions were after. Also with regard to the height as well of the bullets that were fired. That is very crucial. Even though there's no dispute at this stage, the defense and the state agreeing on Oscar Pistorius on whether he was wearing his stumps or not. But this evidence, or this testimony rather, that will be given inside the North Gauteng High Court will really put together really crucial puzzles to make us understand what it is that possibly could have happened on that Valentine's Day morning.
We're really getting into the forensic detail of the case now, and the latest research, Griselda, on social media shows public opinion turning somewhat against Oscar Pistorius. Is this a sense that you guys, the media, are getting as well?
Well, even as we interview the many people on the streets of Pretoria, the general sense that I am getting is that when we speak to them, they're still very much interested in the case, and continue to follow the details whichever they can very closely. But what is key here is that they want to know what really happened there. I think everybody wants to know what really happened, and as these pieces come together by the various testimonies, some say that Oscar Pistorius deserves a chance to speak, even though we know that Oscar Pistorius has the right not to take the stand. But, many people still wanting to know what really happened there. And as this trial continues and the details come together, as we get to understand more from the various experts, police officers and other state witnesses that are being called, that's only when the pieces will be put together. And many people that I've spoken to say they'll only be able to form a conclusion then, and basically that the law should take its course. And then once the court finds whether Oscar Pistorius is guilty or not, then many around Pretoria that I've spoken to say they'll be able to give their answers to that question.
Finally, Griselda, do you have any idea how long you'll still be standing on the pavement outside the court there? Another 3 weeks, another month?
Well, what we have at this stage, Eben, is that we're hearing that the case will be postponed on the 4th of April. We haven't yet verified that at this stage. We're still trying to do so, but speculation is rife outside the North Gauteng High Court that the case will be postponed. We're not sure to what date as yet. So that's about all that we have at this stage. But I certainly will be here on the pavement and inside the court until the 4th of April.
We hope that the weather stays as good as it is at the moment, Griselda. Thank you very much, Griselda Lewis, giving us an update there outside the North Gauteng High Court where Oscar Pistorius' murder trial continues. And I can tell you that, well, they've been putting up with some really bad weather out there, been getting wet for the most part of the last couple of weeks. Just to recap, ballistics expert Chris Nkandla is expected to testify today on whether or not Oscar Pistorius wore his prosthetic legs when he fired the shots that killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. Meanwhile, Steenkamp's family is struggling to come to terms with the gruesome nature of her killing. Riva's cousin, Kim Martin, spoke exclusively yesterday to Griselda Lewis.
I don't have any regrets. I don't have any bitterness.
A life cut short.
I take home with me so many amazing memories.
Her lover arrested for murder. The pictures of that fateful day have found expression in the North Gauteng High Court for days now. Her family, while absent for much of the past 2 weeks' proceedings, are back in court listening to the gory details. Kim Martin, Riva's cousin, says they've looked away every time the bloody pictures were shown.
Luckily, I haven't seen any pictures. We've been looking away. But just listening to the descriptions and that is hard enough itself.
She recalls the last time she saw Riva just a month before she was killed.
She came to visit us in Cape Town.
What was she like?
She was happy. She was happy to see the family. Yeah. It's very difficult. Take each day as it comes.
Martin also reveals that Riva's father, Barry, is not doing well. On day 12, more grisly details emerged of how Steenkamp was killed. Ballistics expert Chris Nkandla conducted the tests on how Pistorius fired the gun and how they entered Riva Steenkamp's body.
There was holes on the right-hand side of the vest. And there was also body tissues on the right chest of the vest, my lady.
One at 93.5 centimeters, a second at 104 centimeters, the third one at 99 centimeters, and the fourth one at 97 centimeters. These would indicate whether Pistorius was on his stumps, as he claims, or whether he had his prosthetics on. He believes Pistorius's height measurements hold the key.
The height of the accused without the prosthesis was 155 centimeters. Then the shoulder level of the accused, meaning up to the shoulder, with the prosthesis was 156 centimeters. The height of the accused's shoulder without the prosthesis was 123 centimeters.
The Steenkamp family says it's become increasingly difficult to listen to testimony after testimony detailing Riva Steenkamp's death. But though they'll be based in Pretoria for the remainder of the week, they will have to listen to more testimony of the crime scene where Riva Steenkamp spent her last hours. Griselda Lewis, SABC News at the North Gauteng High Court.
Now, the shooting of Riva Steenkamp has put guns and gun ownership in South Africa in the spotlight. The country is being portrayed internationally as rather lawless, with trigger-happy citizens all over the place. The North Gauteng High Court heard this week that in January, Pistorius applied for 6 more firearm licenses. Gunpolicy.org estimates that there are 6 million guns in South Africa, roughly 12 for every 100 people. South African law allows an ordinary citizen to possess 4 weapons. Now, in the studio, we have Martin Hood from MJ Hood & Associates, who are specialist practitioners in the field of firearm law. Good morning, Mr. Hood. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Eben. Hi.
As always, I think the first question that pops up is corruption. Do we have a problem with corruption in the awarding of gun licenses in South Africa?
Yes, most certainly, but I want to unpack that, if I may.
Yes, please.
The head of the Central Firearms Registry has been suspended, as has her second in charge, due to a corruption investigation. So, on the one hand, the police and the Hawks are well aware of the corruption, and they are investigating it, they are trying to deal with it, but it's an issue that's existed within the police since I've been involved in firearm licensing. It doesn't matter if it was under the new legislation or the old legislation. Yeah. But the corruption doesn't only start at the top. It actually filters from the bottom upwards as well. So it is across the board from station level, where a simple thing like pay me money so I can process your application happens fairly regularly. I'm aware of many examples, all the way up to a situation where someone wants a license quickly. They know a policeman or a policewoman. They go, they pay the money, they get the license. What's interesting is that, and I think in fairness to the police, it's not only the police that are corrupt, because there's a corruptor and a corruptee, of course. Yeah. And there are a number of allegations that certain firearm trainers are also issuing certificates corruptly as well. And as a result of the perception of corruption, the Minister of Police, instituted an inquiry last year through the Secretary of Police's office. A number of organisations made submissions, and it was originally into trainers and into firearm dealers. But I'm aware of what was submitted to the police, and the focus of all the submissions turned onto the police themselves. Yeah. And we're awaiting the release of the report with great anticipation and interest, because we think that this report is going to really show that there are problems within the police, and it's problems that the public protector picked up on as early as 2007 as well.
The best example then for what you've just said is probably the Pistorius case itself. The fact that here we have a guy who got a gun license while he was, well, under investigation for assault, or he had an assault charge against him at least.
Well, let's look at the general principles, because I think it's important that we understand the firearm licensing and what happens when someone potentially breaks the law. I think it's logical that anyone who has a tendency to assault somebody else or who has allegations of assault needs to be investigated, because they may not be fit to own a firearm. They may use their firearm, and they may use it in a fit of anger. Yeah. So our law provides very simply, if you have allegations of assault against you, when you have a competency certificate or a license, there must be an investigation. I've tried to ascertain in Pistorius's case whether an investigation took place or not. I've been unable to determine whether it did or not. But the point is, when those allegations are made on oath, there must be an investigation. And that investigation can determine a person's ongoing fitness to possess a firearm.
Now, you're an expert in this field. In South Africa, do we have a citizenry that's becoming increasingly trigger-happy?
No. We have unfortunate incidents like this which tend to highlight the use of a firearm, but I think we must bear in mind you can't legislate away stupidity, number one, and you can't legislate away evil. So this was a very stupid, in my view, act. Whether it was a legal act or not, it was a very stupid act, and it's not in keeping with basic firearm ownership and handling principles. Yeah. So we have this incident where a gun is used to kill somebody, but we mustn't forget that, for example, B.S. LaRue in Pretoria physically killed a police officer with his bare hands. Yeah. So I think that we need to focus on the individual using the firearm as opposed to the firearm. The firearm is merely the means to carry out the act. We have a problem perhaps with the mentality of people in this country, and our firearms control legislation is specifically designed, if properly applied, to investigate that mentality and to ensure that people who don't have the right mentality don't get firearms.
That's in law sounds very good, but as you said, there's no pill for stupidity. That's what my dad always used to say. I wanted to ask you about the law pertaining to the use of a firearm, and was it adhered to in the case of Oscar Pistorius? And can you elaborate on your views on that whole incident?
I'm going to base my comments, on what is contained in Oscar Pistorius' own bail affidavit, because obviously we shouldn't be debating his guilt or innocence before the judge has made a decision. So I'm basing it on the information he provided in his bail affidavit. And my opinion is that his statement and his actions reflected in his bail affidavit do not comply with the requirements for self-defense. Simply because there has to be an attack. That's the first most basic requirement. And that attack must be of such a serious nature that a person in those circumstances believes that their life is in danger. So if we apply those two basic principles, and there are additional principles that apply, how could Pistorius ascertain what the attack was when the door was closed, and how could he, well, could he ascertain that there was an attack, and could he ascertain the seriousness of the attack? And my conclusion is no. Therefore, he does not comply with the requirements for self-defense.
So it would be difficult for him then to convince the bench that that was the case. Lastly, I wanted to just, the South African Gun Owners Association, they talk about it being about the person and not the gun, and about educating South Africans about the use of weapons and the finality of weapons. Just your comments in conclusion on that and then the case.
It's the policy of the South African Gun Owners Association to license the person, not the firearm. They want, and all accredited associations agree on this, and we've been engaging government over a long period of time. We want the person to be licensed. We want more focus on the person. We want more thorough focus on the person and their background, less focus on the firearm. And of course what we want as well is we want an educational process in place, which we submitted to government many years ago, and we periodically asked that it be implemented at schools, at colleges, at tertiary education institutions, where we teach people what to do in the event that you come across a firearm.
Well, Martin, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Very interesting insights on, well, now that ballistics are going on and it's all about the guns at the moment, but thank you for coming in and giving us your views. Very interesting indeed.
My pleasure.
Now, social media is always a buzz with your views and comments, and let's have a look at what SRJ says. It's Nkandla versus Oscar Pistorius today. That indeed it is. That's where the nation's attention will be very much. Brian van der Pfeiffer says, Oscar Pistorius, whatever the ballistics prove, Oscar fired to kill an intruder, perceived unknown human being. This constitutes murder. Joel Mkhodi says, Oscar Pistorius shot and killed Reva, I think. That's all. Yes, Joel, that it is. Chamonix says, even if Oscar wins the case, I don't think he'll ever recover from all of this. I don't think anybody can recover 100% from this. It's the integrity that you lose in the end, my dear. Sandy talks about, is the translator in the Oscar Pistorius trial some bizarre joke? Subtitles are being used to interpret the translator. Well, we are here to listen to all the different dialects in South Africa. R.I.P. Reva 33 says, for a change, we focus on something else other than Oscar Pistorius. Hashtag Nkandla report. That's right. Now, while all the attention is on the North Gauteng High Court, another major case, the Griqua Stad murder case, also returned to court yesterday. Northern Cape Judge President Frans Gomo dismissed an application by the minor accused in the murder to reopen his case. The 17-year-old boy is accused of shooting dead farmer Dion Steenkamp, his wife Christel, and their daughter Martella in April of 2012. Now, more of this story is available on our Facebook page. There you'll also find more about the long-awaited Nkandla report to be released today. The NUMSA strike as well as the tragic death of fashion designer Lawrence Scott. Yes, that's all on our Facebook page. If you look at SABC Newsroom on Twitter, that's where we are. And of course, there is, sabc.co.za, but you can also go to our Facebook page. There we go, facebook.com/SABC Newsroom. That's where you get all the updates all of the time. After a short break, we look at NUMSA's planned industrial action and its implications. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
It's incredible how this cup of coffee got here.
Explain.
Well, the farmer has to know when it's going to rain. The buyer needs to know when to buy. The trucks, when to collect. For that, you need a satellite to talk to the ships and the factories.
So where's the coffee in all this?
I don't know, in a big warehouse somewhere. Which has to make sure that every farmer gets paid in the right currency.
So who does all of that?
Who knows?
You missed the Oscar Pistorius trial? Watch the update and highlights of key moments in the trial on SABC News Channel 404 every night at 9 o'clock and at 5 a.m. All local, all global, all the time.
Town is the best run metro in the whole of the country.
What steps will you take to protect communities from the kind of police brutality?
When I am the mayor, I won't take the R1 million salary.
You guys all look the same. None of you should be trusted.
Catch the election debates on SAFM, SABC News Channel and SABC One, Sundays at 6 p.m.
Welcome back. Still Newsroom here on SABC News. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, will today go ahead with the initiative to unite organisations from across society in a 500,000-strong strike against the Employment Tax Incentive Act and in demand of jobs for the youth. The Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, have described the massive strikes, which is set to hit the metal and automotive sectors, as part of a plot to destabilise the African National Congress ahead of the elections. Now, from our Port Elizabeth studio, we have NUMSA President Andrew Chirwa. Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, Mr. President, can you just tell us about the activities, firstly, around the country? Before we get to the politics, just tell us about the activities around the country and your thinking behind this move today.
Look, the Special Congress of NUMSA has resolved that we're going to wage a battle from 2014 against anti-worker policies, which most of them are entrenched in the National Development Plan, which has been adopted by both the ANC and government. And we've said that as NUMSA, we're not going to sit back when there's a strong attack on workers' rights, workers' benefits that were won during the dark days of apartheid, which are threatened today. As a result, we've started with our first phase, which is basically the struggle against the now introduced Employment Tax Incentive Act, which is basically nothing else but a measure to give the bosses free money or free grants, and with a lie to majority of young people in this country that there shall be job creation because of these grants. And we know very much so that the problem in this country is not necessarily that employers don't want to employ, but key to the problem we're facing is that our own economy is, within this current structure, it's unable to absorb a majority of our people into the economy. And as a result, NUMSA has organized activities in basically 8 centers. We are in Gauteng, we are in Port Elizabeth, we are in Cape Town, we are in Witbank, we are in Bloemfontein, as part of our nationwide protest, which will be marches today, where we're calling upon workers in this country, we're calling upon social movements, we're calling upon community organizations, faith-based organizations who cares about the future of this country to join forces with NUMSA today in a broad coalition to say to the government that it can't happen under our name, where our people shall be exploited in the interest of the bosses and capital.
A plot to destabilize the African National Congress ahead of the elections. This is what COSATU described this strike as. What are your views on that?
No, it's not COSATU. It's obviously COSATU has not developed such a position. It's some leaders in COSATU who have abandoned the genuine struggle of the workers, in particular interest of workers, who have decided that they will use workers' organization as a stepping stone to achieve their own self-interest at the expense of workers. COSATU has not developed such a position. We as NUMSA have informed COSATU. We've made it open to COSATU affiliates, to many organizations, of course, to say that let's work together on this, to go out and demonstrate and send a clear message to government that we shall not tolerate these kinds of right-wing policies that are imposed on the most vulnerable, which are workers and the poor in this country. And we've been open about that. In fact, it is also a resolution of COSATU to fight against the youth incentive scheme that NUMSA has taken a campaign about. So it's very bizarre to have some individual leaders who would want to suspend the working class struggle in the interest of elections for no other reasons except for the fact that they don't want to fall out of favor with those that they are hoping that will look after themselves, would ensure that they are well taken care of. But when the working class, the workers in particular in this country, are leaderless, when COSATU is unable to take up real struggle against what is taking place, you'd know that the ANC government recently now has passed quite a number of policies which are anti-workers. The e-tolling, they've refused to ban labor brokers. Now, as we're speaking today, they've introduced an incentive scheme for the bosses so that workers can subsidize the bosses through their own money so that we can drive a low-wage regime in this country and create a multi-tier labor system in this country.
Mr. President, thank you for joining us today on Newsroom. That is Andrew Chera, the president of NUMSA, of course. Industrial action set for around the country, as you've just heard, about 500,000, 500,000 people set to down their tools against, well, the Employment or Tax Incentive Act. Now, let's just take a look at your comments on social media. Sanele Nchangase says, waiting for Thuli Madonsela's Nkandla report now. Oscar Pistorius can wait. Fiona says, it's Madonsela versus Mangena. Whose report will be the most bulletproof? Nice play on words there, my dear. You've missed out on a career in the media. Mama Tato says, seems the Nkandla report will overshadow Oscar today. I think that, and of course we'll have a live crossing to the IEC for the Code of Conduct for political parties to be signed today. Thuli Madonsela will be telling us her findings on Nkandla report. Can't wait. Atini says so, and I'm sure that's what the rest of the country are thinking right now. Those that came in about a couple of minutes ago. At SABC Newsroom is where you can give us your contributions, or our Facebook page /SABC Newsroom. Well, let's now take a look at our YouTube clip of the day for a little bit of light comic relief. On Monday, Los Angeles was hit by a 4.4 magnitude earthquake that shook the entire Los Angeles area. The early morning earthquake woke up not only a lot of celebrities who immediately took to Twitter, it also sent early morning breakfast news anchors like myself into a frenzy. Have a look.
Ginger, thank you. Coming up, more problems for a troubled
earthquake.
Yep,
We're having an earthquake. Okay, it appears to have stopped.
Yeah.
We're gonna jump right now to
our cameras behind us.
To the U.S. Geological Survey. Let's get right on that right now. That felt very close.
Very strong.
Yeah, let's get right on that. Okay.
All right, Henry, we're going to bring you into this. You can see right now, I mean, we've got stuff.
Oops. Okay, I'm back from under the desk like my fellow anchor there on the morning show in Los Angeles. The full video is, of course, available on our Facebook page. I promise you will never get under the desk at SABC Newsroom because we simply don't have earthquakes in this country. We're going to take a short commercial break. Newsroom back right after this.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
It's incredible how this cup of coffee got here.
Explain.
Well, the farmer has to know when it's going to rain. The buyer needs to know when to buy. The trucks when to collect. For that, you need a satellite to talk to the ships and the factories.
So where's the coffee in all this?
I don't know, in a big warehouse somewhere. Which has to make sure that every farmer gets paid in the right currency.
So who does all of that?
Who knows?
A very warm welcome to you at home. This is Afro Showbiz News, the show that brings you all things art and entertainment from around the African continent. Tunisian rapper Ben Ahmed, better known as Clay BBJ, has been released after spending 2 weeks in prison. The arrest came after he was accused of insulting security and violating public morals. The songs sung by the artists criticized the current situation in Tunisia. That's Afro Showbiz. Catch us every Saturday evening at 7:30.
Newsroom on SABC News. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look at the top stories. Public Protector Tudi Madonsela will release her final report into upgrades at President Jacob Zuma's Nkandla homestead this afternoon. Controversy has surrounded the spending of more than 206 million rand on what were described as security upgrades at the homestead. An embargo has been placed on news stories while the report is being released, and journalists have been barred from taking electronic equipment into the venue. The signing of the National Code of Conduct pledge by contesting political parties and the ballot paper position draw for the 2014 elections is set to take place in Midrand this morning. A record number of political parties are set to contest the national and provincial elections on the 7th of May 2014. Today, they will all commit to an election that is free and fair, free from violence, intimidation, and intolerance. The Metal Workers Union, NUMSA, says it expects 500,000 workers to heed the call for a national one-day strike today. The union has called the strike to highlight its opposition to the Employment Tax Incentive Act, which encourages private employers to employ young workers. NUMSA Secretary General Eben Jim says the youth subsidy is an attack on the workers. And ballistics expert Chris Nkandla is expected to testify today on whether or not Oscar Pistorius wore his prosthetic legs when he fired the shots that killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. Taking the stand yesterday, Nkandla told the court he had performed tests linking the holes in the toilet door through which the athlete fired his handgun with marks on the tiles and the position of Steenkamp's fatal wounds. Prosecutor Gerry Nall then told the court that he would leave his conclusions for today. Now, the Free State Health Department will march through the streets of Bloemfontein to commemorate World Tuberculosis Day. The march highlights the impact of TB and HIV in the community. Prevention and infection control of the disease will be emphasized. The march is held under the theme, Reach the 3 Million. Now, Zemasa Mbewu joins us live from the march. We'll talk to the Free State MEC for Health, Dr. Benny Malakwane. Good morning, Zemasa. Thanks for joining us. Before you do the interview, just set the scene for us.
Well, good morning, Eben. As you can see, crowds already have gathered here at Bophelo House, which is the office of the Health Department. Now, these crowds will be going into the streets of Bloemfontein to speak to people about today's walk. But now, before we actually go in there, we need to speak just to get into perspective of what exactly is supposed to happen today. I've got the MEC of Health, Dr. Benny Malakwane, will be telling us more about it. Dr. Malakwane, I mean, why are we having this march? We know that the actual day is on the 24th of March. Why today?
The Free State Department of Health is also making its contribution towards the global drive on Reach the 3 Million campaign by embarking on this march, also as a prelude to celebration of World TB Day on the 24th.
Now, I mean, what will the people be doing today? I mean, what's the objective?
Taking a walk around the streets of the metro, talking to people about raising the awareness about TB as a killer, and encouraging people that suffer from the disease to take treatment and to ensure that we advance cure as a department through our programs.
Now, earlier on as we were talking, you were telling us that we've got the highest deaths related to TB. Tell us about, just give us more on that.
Look, it's a discovery that we have made, and probably that is well known in the country, that in terms of deaths related to TB, the Free State seems to be taking center stage. That's why we are going to intensify our programs to ensure that there would be zero deaths to TB for all our patients, especially in our district of Thabo Mofokeng.
Yeah, just speaking about Thabo Mofutshane, I mean, why are we having such a high number there?
Look, remember TB is one of those diseases that are associated with poverty. And Thabo Mofutshane as a district, we know is one of the worst afflicted in the province. That's why it's not surprising that you find that our stats are higher than in terms of death.
And how are you going to get people to get tested for TB? I mean, it could also be one of the reasons why we're having so many people having TB, discovering it actually late.
Look, if you might recall that last year around May we embarked on a program. We launched a program at the taxi rank here close to this building behind us, where we embarked on a program to screen each and every one for TB, and we were encouraging people who had not had themselves screened for TB to do so. And over a period of more than 6 months, we had screened more than 500,000 individuals. And that's the essence of it. Health promotion and ensuring that you intensify your programs for people to come and for more of them to get into the net is the only way to get you to get people on treatment and for them to be supported and finally cured.
Okay. All right. That's what we have from you here. There will be an event on the 24th. This is where all the activities pertaining to TB will be rolled out. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Sabasa. That's Sabasa Mbera coming to you live from Bloemfontein. Of course, we will not be going straight into the courtroom this morning. The signing of the National Code of Conduct pledge by contesting parties and the ballot paper position draw for the 2014 elections is busy taking place in Midrand this morning. A record number of political parties are set to contest the national and provincial elections on the 7th of May this year. Today, they will all commit to an election that is free and fair, free from violence, intimidation and intolerance. Let's cross now live to Midrand, where the proceedings are set to go underway.
As contestants compete, they have to do so within the limits of the law. The Electoral Code of Conduct is vitally important as it lays out the rules of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the date of the election has now been proclaimed. This means that the Code of Conduct is now binding, not just for all political parties, but for all persons in South Africa during this period. Of course, those elements in the Electoral Act that are described as prohibited conduct are criminal acts, regardless of whether an election has been proclaimed or not. Following Wednesday's deadline for the payment of deposits and submission of documentation, including candidate lists by political parties, a total of 33 political parties have indicated their intention to contest the elections of the National Assembly, although 3 are yet to fully comply with prescribed deposits and may be ruled out before the elections. This is evidence that South Africans continue to embrace the spirit of multipartism. According to the legislation and the electoral timetable, parties still have a window opportunity until 24th March to submit any outstanding requirements. If all 33 parties meet their obligations, this will be 7 more parties that will contest the elections than the ones that contested in 2009. And it will be double the number of parties that contested in 1999. In South Africa's historic first democratic election in 1994, there were 19 parties on the national ballot paper and 21 in 2004. The Code of Conduct that is being signed today is a result of this engagement and consultation with all political parties. We are hopeful that by signing the Code of Conduct today, all political parties participating in this ceremony undertake to abide by the Code. We also hope that political parties will enforce and make sure that their supporters understand the contents of this code. Most importantly, this pledge is signed in public to show party supporters and all South Africans that as political parties, you are committed to abide by the spirit and the letter of this code of conduct, which immediately becomes a moral obligation and duty for all parties contesting the elections to uphold at all times. The promotion of an environment that is conducive to free and fair election in this country rests entirely on all of us abiding by this code. With a record of 25.3 eligible voters on the voters' roll, contesting political parties have their work cut out for them. These voters are ready to exercise their democratic right to choose their representatives. The Electoral Commission is counting on you as political parties to ensure that there shall be no intimidation, harassment, violence, or threats that might deny any registered voter their right to choose. It remains your responsibility to explain the code of conduct to your members and supporters so that no one can plead ignorance should they be found on the wrong side of the code of conduct. For the rest of us, it is our collective duty and responsibility to ensure that no one will lose their lives or be maimed simply because they wanted to participate in an election, a fundamental right for which so many have died before the historic 1994 elections. In conclusion, the Electoral Commission undertakes to do its utmost to deliver an election that is indeed free, fair, and credible. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the visitors and our guests understand that we are going to indeed facilitate the signing of the code of conduct publicly. I must indicate that every political party contesting in these elections has indeed done so, and their candidates. We are required by law to ensure that everyone who participates in an election is bound by this code. I know we have, from being 5 minutes late, we are 5 minutes ahead of time. Now I'm going to, to just clear how we proceed from here. I understand my colleagues give me instructions even from a distance. I understand that at 10 we are crossing live on television to cover political parties that are going to be signing this pledge. This is how we are going to do it. I will ask members of political parties, leaders of political parties present, and they will come through in terms of their sitting arrangement. They will have 2 minutes. We have all of us 2 minutes to say, to pledge their support to this code of conduct, and to call on their members to do the same, and their candidates. Thereafter, they proceed. They will sit. I imagine there's going to be another chair, very close to me, an additional chair, and they will sit here and they will sign that pledge on behalf of their party. We have a judge in the commission. The commission has 5 members, one of whom must be a judge. I have the privilege to have Judge Makanya preside over the signing of the pledge. Every one of the leaders of the political parties will sit with Judge Makanya, who will then, administer the signing on your behalf. do feel welcome. Thank you very much. As for us, ladies and gentlemen, I think for the next few moments, perhaps we need to just say to one another, Advocate Tlakula will have 5 minutes to read the pledge. Okay. I take instructions from here also. It's Judge Makanya that will do that this morning. Thank you very much. Judge Makanya will do that before we cross over live. And I imagine my distinguished leaders that we have clarified. 2 minutes, I'm going to be slightly tough because we only have an hour to cover all of us. And I think, I'm going to ask for your help. Thank you very much for your understanding. Judge, may I kindly request that you join me to read the pledge, and then we arrange for you to administer the oath. You'll be all right reading? You'll be all right reading? Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes. Should I?
Yeah. You read it, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Program Director, for this opportunity. Before I read the pledge, I've got to state that we have got the dignitaries who have already been acknowledged, and you are all very special to us in the IEC. We welcome you. I can't really exhaust acknowledging you by names. You are too many. But I'm going to have one exception to acknowledge the presence, as the chairperson has already acknowledged, but also acknowledged the Deputy Chief Justice. This is a good acknowledgement because he is my leader in the judiciary. So I work under him. If I don't do so, then I may